too.
Well, and I am so excited to be here with you all. So as Stephanie is setting that up, I can introduce myself.
Yes.
So my name is Jenny Hughes, and I am a trauma psychologist and the founder of the Brave Trauma Therapist Collective. And I'm super excited to be here with everyone today. We'll be talking about all things vicarious resilience, which a lot of folks have never even heard of. Actually, in the chat, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the chat if you've heard of it. Thumbs up, thumbs down if you haven't heard of it. Oftentimes, when I ask that question, it's mostly no's or thumbs down. It's okay if you do a thumbs down, it's not going to be hate. And that's why it's such a huge mission of mine to share about vicarious resilience with therapists, because when you learn about how to identify it, install it, and enhance it, it can become this renewable energy source for us. And intensives are a really, really unique opportunity for experiencing vicarious resilience for any kind of therapist. So, thank you, Stephanie, for having me here. And I'm so excited to talk about this.
Amazing. So good. I I cannot wait. I appreciate it so much. And I feel like
Oh,
we're
hold
really in
on.
for a
Sorry.
treat.
Hold on. That's on my end. I was trying to answer a chat and then it turn the sound on. Okay.
Oh yeah, no worries. I think
Sorry.
Zoom filters it out anyway, so we
Okay,
can hear
cool.
anything.
Oh, I did.
That's amazing. We have some folks saying hi in the chat. Hey Barbara. Good to see you. So if you're hopping on, give us a quick hello so that we know we are streaming and live. And let us know where you're joining in from.
And
This
if
is
you've
going to
ever
be
heard of
so
vicarious
sweet.
resilience.
Yes, if you've heard of vicarious resilience, our topic today. I just want to say, Jenny, every time that I get to spend time with you is so special. You have so much knowledge. And I was reflecting when we initially connected, I'm like coming into this world of serving therapists and not just doing therapy. And you're just such a kind, like warm, hospitable presence. And I will always remember that. It was so, so meaningful.
Oh,
So thank
you.
you.
Thank
And
you.
I can't wait to talk about this because it's a really
Yeah.
big deal. It literally came up on a call I did yesterday with like a launch guide alum who was like, I did my first intensive, 3 hours, and they were like, I can't believe how different it feels because
Mm.
yes, I'm tired, but not like zapped, like a zapped of energy, good tired. And
Mm.
so I know we're gonna kind of dive into like, well, why is
Well,
that and what
can
does
we?
that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
curious if you explored that with this alum.
yeah,
And if
yeah,
you can, I don't know if you're allowed to, or if you feel comfortable sharing some of those details of like
for sure.
exploring that, because it can help to really uncover some of this. Because vicarious resilience is often hidden. It's
Yeah,
not only in these huge, big moments that happen, and it is also in the big moments, which get to happen more often with intensives. So I'm
right.
so curious to hear what it was like for you to explore this with the alum.
Yeah, she was just like the person the client came in and just was like so able to go to deep places. And she was just comparing like how good that feels to her soul. And we were talking about the difference between like, being on a call with or being on like a weekly session and maybe it feels like one of those sessions where they're doing it out of obligation or just to like check
Mm,
the box or it's one thing among a lot of things happening in their day and you don't feel like you can really like make that type of connection
yeah.
when people are in that headspace. You
Yep.
could be the best therapist in the world, but it's just like a very different mentality of showing up and like why are we here today? Like what's the
Mhm.
purpose of this space?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and this is just, I'm so glad we're opening with an example because a lot of times, so vicarious resilience, I'll define it in a minute, but a lot of times with vicarious resilience, it can feel really hard to kind of understand when you're just hearing about it, when you're hearing the words that I'm saying. And it's very much this felt experience, just like this alum was describing to you, and
Mhm.
how it felt so different after the session and perhaps even during. And
Yeah.
even as their client was going to really deep places, a fly on the wall might be like, that looks awful. Like,
Yeah.
this looks terrible.
Like,
And for us as therapists, we know where that deep stuff is going to take our clients. And
yeah.
so, Vicarious Resilience, it was discovered in 2007 on accident. And so,
The best things are, right?
I know. So this research group, they're qualitative researchers, and they were doing research with therapists who were working with survivors of torture.
Mm.
And they were not looking for warm, fuzzy feeling stuff. They were looking for vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, secondary traumatic stress, burnout, right? All the bad stuff. And they're qualitative interviewers, so they were just doing these interviews, and as they were analyzing the data and looking at the themes that were emerging, they were like, WTF, why are all these therapists saying that they love their work so much and that they're being
Oh.
transformed by the work, that their clients are affecting them as therapists in positive ways when they're
Yeah.
helping people who've been tortured, right? Like, none of
Right,
this makes
right.
sense. And so, thank goodness they were like, we need to look at this instead of, being kind of having blinders on towards their original hypotheses. And they realized that it was especially through the empathic engagement that these therapists experience. That's the foundation of our job, right?
Hmm.
It was through that pathway that they were experiencing these positive things, these positive effects of their work.
Yeah.
And so that's a big reason it's called vicarious resilience, because empathic engagement is also the pathway through which we experience vicarious trauma,
Mm.
right? When we open up our empathy, when we are experiencing that with and for someone else, we're going to soak up some hard stuff. That is not, we can't avoid that. That's a natural part of our work. And it's another thing that's important to me, to normalize vicarious trauma. And when we normalize it, we can be open to then also the good stuff, the vicarious resilience that we get to soak up. But when we move through this world with all of the learning that we get of avoid vicarious trauma at all costs, we're armoring up and we don't get to experience, the good stuff. And we're not really protecting ourselves from the vicarious trauma anyway, because all that white knuckling takes a lot of energy. I digress, but that's kind of where vicarious resilience comes from.
Yeah.
There's been more research that's been done over the years. And again, we can have words like transformation, empowering, humbling, nourishing. And those are all great words to start to think about what vicarious resilience does for us. But just like your alum was sharing, it is very much this felt experience that we
Mhm.
get to have really any time we're with a client.
Yeah. Ooh, I have like so many thoughts
Yeah.
sparking. And folks who are in the chat, if you're like, relating or have questions, like put them in there. Um, and I'm just obviously we can follow our planned questions, but in my mind, I'm like, ooh, if we're opening our highway or like our empathetic
Mhm.
engagement to a client, you know, the like you were saying, the vicarious trauma can happen, but also the vicarious resilience can happen. I'm so curious, like my type A personality is like, well, how do I make sure only the good stuff gets in? Or is it just like it all gets in, but it's what we do with it once it's there? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So it's more the second thing of it's all going to get in, and then what are we going to do with it?
Ooh.
And so that's why I teach how to identify vicarious resilience, how to install it in our brain and body, and then
Ooh.
how to enhance it by telling other therapists about it. And actually, when we look at this from a neuroanatomy standpoint, we have a lot of literature about different parts of our brain that respond to pain. And there are certain parts of our brain that, through empathy, actually turn on pain networks, like
Mm.
pain responses and the survival response. Like, right, with the hand model of the brain, we flip our own lid as a therapist. because our brain can't tell the difference between someone else's pain from our own.
Ooh.
Also, at the same time, though, you can train compassion networks to turn on when we are doing our job as therapists. And these parts of our brain, these structures in our brain, actually respond with things like reward. It feels very rewarding. It then makes us feel motivated to lean in, to help, to keep supporting someone. But it helps to kind of knock out the empathic distress parts of the brain and network because they're totally separate parts and structures in the brain. And so we can actually train these compassion ones. And so that maps on really well to the concept of vicarious resilience. So when you learn how to identify it, know what is it like for me when I'm experiencing vicarious resilience? Um,
Yeah.
I have a vicarious resilience tracker that can be really helpful for folks. We can share the link for it later, but it kind of goes into a lot of different examples of what might it be like in your brain, in your body, what might it
Ooh.
be like relationally in between you and another person, and also in your job, occupationally. And sometimes having those examples can be really helpful because it is this sort of ambiguous concept and it is so unique in how we each experience it. For
Yeah.
me, it's often like warm fuzzies in my chest. That's how I start to feel it. Or I'll start just kind of getting like a dopey grin, or also when I tear up, right?
Yes.
And it could be tears because I am really like with and feeling empathically with the person and what they're doing, but also then those tears of pride and joy and just gratitude, and those can happen at any point in our work. So
Yeah.
identifying it first for yourself, installing it by making it real. So that can just be, noticing it, having that mindful awareness that it's happening. I also have another free tool called the soft transitions exercise that helps you to kind of like document it in a really quick way.
Yeah.
And then enhancing it is telling other therapists about it. And so I'd love to see, and even like in the chat here, but also it could even be something you all are doing as a group regularly of having vicarious resilience shout outs. And
Yeah.
obviously, de identified, we're not going to break HIPAA rules, but when we tell someone else about the vicarious resilience, just like your alum told you yesterday, what was it
Yeah.
like for you to feel that?
Oh man, I was like, this is so cool. I can't believe I get to be a part of this moment. Like, oh, it gave me resilience and
Mhm.
like energy to then do my work. It like
Totally.
is contagious.
And this is going to be your subjective opinion, but what was it like, do you think, for her to tell you about it?
Ooh, I think she was really proud,
Hmm.
like because she went through the program, so there was a time of like, I'm sharing, like imparting information or knowledge, and now she gets to say, like, it happened, like it
Yeah.
ch changed from an idea to a real thing. And there was
Hmm.
like a lot of, yeah, gratitude, pride, like excitement.
Hmm. Yep.
So good.
And that sharing, that's what enhances vicarious resilience for both people. We do this all the time in Brave. So, our members in Brave are used to this concept now, and they'll just randomly drop vicarious resilience moments in our community to be able to share together. And
Yes.
that sharing is just like narrative work, right? So, like when we do narrative work in any really kind of format, when depending on your approach or modality, things like that.
Yeah.
But speaking things into existence makes them so real.
Hmm.
And then telling someone else and being able to share with someone else, it becomes real between you and them. And so that's how
Yeah.
it grows and enhances. And
Oh,
so, really, like for me, getting the concept out there, teaching people how to notice when they're experiencing vicarious resilience, giving skills to install it, to make it real for themselves, and then enhancing it in relationship with other therapists who get it makes such a
yes.
difference.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I think so often people are like, well, I don't, or I'll say I have done this where I'm like, oh, I just walked out of that session. I am feeling like, wow, or just, yeah, a sense of pride. I think sometimes we can. And then be like, oh, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to be like showing off or whatever
Mm,
else. But being like, no, say it. Like there's a function to that. It does something in your brain. It does something like in your energy, in your work. It's preventative of
Exactly.
burnout. It's
Yes.
important. It's really important.
Yeah. And I know especially for us as therapists, it's so hard to ask for help. It
Mhm.
also is hard to toot our own horn. And so I think one way that can feel perhaps easier at first is to share the wins that you're noticing in your clients.
Yeah.
So if it helps you to share about your moments of vicarious resilience and to feel that it is aligned and really consistent with your values, with your approach to this stuff, tell another therapist about the awesome thing that your client got to do in their session, or the small and the big little kind of breakthroughs that they get to experience, right?
Hmm.
And so you don't
Hmm.
have to necessarily share anything about yourself, but really celebrating the work that your clients are doing that you get to witness.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And then I could totally see how, like, if there's that pathway and like the trauma is coming in, the resilience is coming in, but oh, look, we're installing and amplifying, enhancing
Mhm.
the resilience, then okay, that like traumatic content that did come in doesn't feel like it has such a grip. Um,
Yeah, I mean, and really like, oh, I want to say hi to Brooke. Hey, Brooke, she just said hi in the chat. Um, we really like vicarious trauma and vicarious resilience are two sides of the same coin. And so we really can't have one without the other, but that's okay, right? We are, like I said, we're taught to avoid vicarious trauma, that it's this boogeyman under the bed that we shouldn't experience. We're taught that if we do experience vicarious trauma, then clearly we don't have good enough boundaries, or we're not
right.
doing self-care well enough, and we are such a freaking failure, right? It is all our fault that we're experiencing vicarious trauma as a therapist. But
Yeah.
how can you walk through water without getting wet? How can you do this work without being affected by it? And
Hmm.
why is that a bad thing? And so normalizing it gives us permission to be human in this work, to obviously be affected. And when we know that there is a counterbalance through vicarious resilience, then it doesn't feel quite as scary to be open to having our hearts broken.
Yeah. Ooh, there's so many parallels. I love this.
Yeah.
I love this. Ooh. I want to say, like, folks in the chat, if you're like responding to anything, if there's any part of this conversation you want us to like lean into and join with you in, please put it there.
Yes.
Um, because there's lots of ways we can go with it.
Yeah, please share your questions, any reactions or reflections in the chat. I can see what you are putting here, and so I can respond to you immediately.
Yeah, I love it. As we kind of give them a sec to think and type, um, I'm looking, where do you think we should go next, Jenny?
Well,
Um,
one thing that I was thinking that we could do is I can actually walk you and anyone live or on the replay through a bit of an exercise
yes,
to maybe reflect on some potential moments of vicarious resilience in your practice.
yes,
Okay, cool.
100%.
So this is, kind of it's a visualization, and also not everyone thinks in pictures or can see pictures in their mind. And so if that's how your brain works, you're totally still going to be able to do this, because often people who don't think in pictures, they are able to still pick up on and sense things through guided visualizations in different ways. And so it might be physical sensations or words or colors or textures or sounds. So, however your brain works, just give it permission to listen to what I'm going to walk us through and to just see what comes up for you, because that's such rich information. Okay. All right. So, Stephanie, do you have a preference for yourself? Because I can't see anyone else. Do you want eyes open, eyes closed, eyes in a fixed spot?
I usually do eyes closed. I get distracted pretty easily. Yeah. So are you
Okay.
gonna
So,
kind of, is it responsive or do I just sort of
nope.
visualize?
Nope, you're just gonna be listening to me.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
want you to be comfortable. And so, seated comfortably, the eyes open, eyes closed was just again about your own personal comfort and being in this moment in the way that works best for you. So as you're feeling yourself drop in, Let your mind start to float. This is kind of like the EMDR float back, but in a different way, where we want your mind to float and to think about and move through any clients that start to come to mind. They might be intensive clients or just anyone that you have served in your career. And as you give yourself time and space to let these folks, these beautiful humans, come up in your mind, see if there's one that seems to be standing out more than others. Okay. As you're noticing this one that's standing out, it could be that your mind keeps coming back to them, or their face is brighter, or the sense of them is just stronger. See if you can drop into an interaction that you had with them. It could be a real one, or it could just be an interaction that your brain starts to create around this human being. It's not about whether this is a positive or a difficult interaction with them. Just notice what it is like to be with them. You can notice the things they're saying, the energy that is being transferred between the two of you, how you feel as you're interacting with them. Take this moment with them and let your mind do a little bit of time traveling now. Based on the work that you are doing with them in this visualization, that you really did do with them in real life, and let your brain just sort of explore the potential impact on this work, of this work on this client. And just see how that feels in your body. Again, I have no idea whether this is something that is warm and fuzzy for you or something that is worrying. It doesn't really matter though. We're just going to notice. And after you've scanned your body, you've picked up on those signals, give your brain and body permission to start to say goodbye to this client for now, whatever that looks like for you and this person, to thank them for being a part of this and to give them the opportunity to choose where they want to go next. Hmm. Okay. Whenever you're ready, take your time.
And I'm like, it's so peaceful.
I know. So first of all, thank you for doing that with me, with everyone.
Yeah.
And you can share as much or as little as you want about what that was like.
Yeah.
Um, what are some initial kind of reactions that you had to moving through that for yourself?
That was really cool. There was one person who like stuck in my mind, and it's not someone I think of very often.
Mm.
And at first it helped that you were like, it doesn't have to be good or bad or like worrying or, warm and fuzzy. And then when I thought of the moment, what I remember was just being in the room with her and being like, wow, that is
Hmm.
deep. Like she's experiencing
Hmm.
something very deep, almost to the point of like, it's a little bit scary, but also like, wow.
Hmm.
And like when you said how do you feel in vicarious resilience and you said warm and fuzzies, I
Mhm.
was thinking like I feel almost like the hair on my neck stands up like, ooh, we just crossed into different kind of territory.
Mhm.
Like deep.
Yeah. And when you said wow, actually, that's funny because I felt tingles from like here all the way down through my torso. It was just like whoosh
Yeah,
when you said
exactly.
wow, because I could feel that.
Yeah. And then just to like let myself feel it, but not be in, like, you know what I mean? I'm not
Mhm.
responsible. We're not having an interaction in this moment. I can just feel like, oh, this is
Hmm.
what that was like. So cool.
It's something that's interesting when we look at the research about vicarious resilience is one of the predictors of therapists being able to experience vicarious resilience is actually time in the field. And the longer you're in the field, kind of the more likely you are to be able to experience and benefit from vicarious resilience. And I share
Ooh.
that because you're describing a situation with this client where she was doing really deep and difficult work. It's that fly on the moment wall where the fly would be like, WTF, this looks
Right, like, get me
terrible.
out of here.
But your reaction was wow. Can you tell us more about why?
Just being like, maybe it's knowing that this doesn't happen every day
Hmm.
and people don't drop to that level of like inner connection, inner honesty, you know, like to their core and how
Hmm.
like sacred that is, like rare, like ooh.
Hmm. And what happened when I invited you to think about the future for this client?
I was like, I have never thought about that. It really was
Hmm.
kind of like, whoa, like opening up this whole other thing that, and I just felt like, yeah, there weren't really necessarily specifics, but just that, um, like, oh, she's more clear, she's more free, like
Hmm.
more in possession of herself, and just being like that like you're in the world in a different way, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. Yep. And I ask all of that because um, so other kind of research things about vicarious resilience is a lot of times in this qualitative research, they've heard therapists say that, through vicarious resilience, they've been able to trust the process more, which is something that you hear in grad school, and you're like, shut up, I have no idea what that means. Uh, they're able to
Yes.
really let the client lead, which again, grad school, you're like, what? How does that work?
Yeah.
And one of my hypotheses about those and then the time and field stuff is that as we grow ourselves in our careers, and it's not that this can't happen to newer therapists, but also as we grow and we get to see where our clients take the work that they're doing with us, we can kind of foreshadow what is going to come from these really tough moments that we get to experience and witness, these sacred moments, as you said. And
Yeah.
so this was a really, really intense moment with this client that came to mind. And when you had that invitation to look forward, you saw that she was getting her life back, that she was more
Yeah.
free, that she was more in charge of herself. And so we can start to do a little bit of predicting the future, even though we never know what's going to happen, because we have that experience and we can see that going deep means they're going to be able to get their life back again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's so interesting that like your capacity for vicarious resilience is higher with time in the field. Because I think in
Mhm.
general we would think like your like risk of burnout would be higher, and I'm sure both can be like both are true. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's what you do with it, like what you're aware of.
And the greatest predictor of burnout is actually isolation and then organizational factors.
Yeah.
And that applies to people in private practice too, because you are your own organization. And it has actually nothing to do with your specialty, the kind of work that you do, the time that you're in the field. And at the same time, when you are really working with vicarious resilience, it is of course going to be supportive of you in so many ways. And the identify, install, and enhance piece is bringing you into community. So it helps to push back against that predictor of burnout being isolation.
Yeah. Ooh, I love this.
Another researchy thing. I just love sharing this stuff.
Yeah,
Another
so
predictor
good.
of vicarious resilience in therapists is actually our own personal experiences of trauma.
Ooh.
Which is also interesting because our own history of trauma can also be a predictor of us experiencing things like vicarious trauma and that turning into more difficult things like compassion fatigue, secondary traumatic stress, and burnout. And when we look at it through the lens of vicarious resilience, the way that the researchers are kind of understanding it is through intersectionality. And so when we look at all these things, time in the field, right? Um, our own history of trauma, all of that, a lot of that is intersectionality with vicarious resilience because we have our own unique experiences. And it's more of a human invitation to be ourselves, to let our pieces, parts and pieces show up and be a part of this work in a more explicit way.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, when you were saying like our trauma is a big predictor. I was like, ooh, how often is it? Like maybe your trauma gets activated during a session, but then at least I've experienced this, then my like resilience also kicks in
Mm.
of like, uh-oh, this could be scary. And then, oh, but we know like the neural pathways are there. We know the way through. We know we're not in danger. Like I'm okay and we are okay. And like we're gonna keep
Exactly.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, it certainly we want to remember that we can only take our clients as far as we've gone ourselves, but that is not about weaponizing self-care. That is about having our own opportunities and invitations to do our work, when and when we need to and when we are capable of doing that.
Mhm.
Um, as opposed to, oh, you're burnt out. Well, why aren't you taking care of yourself well enough, right?
Right. You're like, gee, thanks. That's really helpful.
I know, right, exactly. And so yeah, having our own history of trauma, I mean, we all experience stress and trauma in our lives, and there's going to be those intersecting identities. And also, again, it's some of this ability to see the future, to predict the future without being totally accurate. Because when we have walked through that, like you just described,
Hmm.
I've seen this, I've been through this myself.
Yeah.
We know that other people are capable of it, and we then can be with them in that moment.
Yeah. Oh, I'm totally thinking of like a doula, who's like, I have
Yeah,
given birth. I have helped many people give birth. Like I know this is a painful moment, but this is a part of the process. Like you're in a good
right.
place.
Yes, exactly.
So good.
Yeah.
I love one other thing it made me think of was, when you said letting clients lead and
Mhm.
like being in a place where you can allow that and be comfortable with that. I think some of that, yeah, is time in the field, but I feel like that's even more critical in intensives because
Mhm.
whether you come in with like an agenda and say, here we go, and maybe it's not allowing for some of the like magic to unfold when you're like
Mm.
present and attuned with someone. So I loved that our like resilience allows us to do that, to be even more
Mhm.
present. And then when those moments feel so good, it like feeds and it continues to like grow the cycle.
Exactly. Well, and let's talk about that more because that's really interesting. So, it maps onto a lot of things as well because doing intensives is, um, at least right now, I think more relatively new, right? It's something
Yeah.
that therapists have been doing for a long time, but it is now really growing in I mean, thanks to you, really, in its use and its application. And anytime we're learning a new skill, we are going to be a new learner, right? And
Yeah.
so, even if we've been in the field for 15 years, if we're doing a new thing, all that imposter syndrome stuff kicks up. I remember when I started my private practice years ago, I'd been doing this work for so long. And then all of a sudden, I opened a private pay private practice, and I was like, oh shit, I am not worthy. Why would anyone pay me their
Yes,
money? I'm
yes.
terrible, right? Because I
Like
was
just
new
come for
at it.
free.
Exactly. Everything is free. And so I just name that because it's kind of like the time and field stuff, new skill, new kind of approach, whatever. And a lot of times when we learn a new thing, we want the outline, we want the structured approach. And a lot of times, and I know you teach this, people will create workbooks, right? They'll like walk through all this stuff. They'll have all the goodies, all of the things to create the space. And
Mhm.
over time, you learn how to flex and adapt that to your own personal approach.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I'm saying all of this, and as you're thinking about vicarious resilience and allowing the client to lead, I'm curious what's coming up for you and perhaps to everyone in this group to maybe think about this in even a more nuanced way.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's like a cyclical thing that happens, like you said, when you open your practice, like you first become a therapist and you're like, you're gonna let me do this? The door's shut and I'm the only one in here,
I
like, whoa.
know.
Or like you're opening your like hitting different milestones. But I think correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the resiliency factor is like, I know I've done that cycle. And
Mm.
so I know I can do this one too.
Hmm.
And like how yes, you could feel so like could be a lot of nerves or like insecurity or whatever going into a different format, but then when you get to experience yourself
Mm.
in that format, it can be like wow, like you put this is a weird thing, but it just popped in my mind. I'm like, you put lightning in like a little bottle. It's like, whoa, that's cool. But you put it in a bigger bottle and you're like, wow, did you see
Mm.
that?
Right.
So yeah, I feel like it carries us through those like wobbly moments, whatever
Hmm.
that is, the
Hmm.
next season, cycles, chapters, all
Hmm.
that stuff.
And so this can be a reminder too for folks, whether they're brand new in intensives or they've been doing it for a while, to so I background. So I was always like a child person in my training and actually ended up specializing in infant mental health in my internship and postdoc. And then now I really just work with adults. But I
Sure,
share
yeah.
that because I was trained in child parent psychotherapy. And in CPP, we have this term called ports of entry. And CPP is this very relational intervention for kids 0 to 5, but it's always dyadic with them and their parent. And so you're looking for these ports of entry into the relationship and ports of entry for when you can perhaps do an intervention or maybe just sit back as an intervention.
Hmm.
All of that to say, um, as people are doing intensives, perhaps something that they take from our talk today is looking for ports of entry in new ways, right? So, a port of entry into leaning in as a client is really digging into something in their workbook and staying there instead of feeling the pressure to move to the next thing.
Hmm.
Or, the port of entry in whatever modality that you're using, to allow it to kind of like percolate to grow naturally and to lean into that therapeutic relationship and attunement or whatever it might be because a
Yeah.
lot of those moments are when the magic of vicarious resilience makes itself known.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like for me, I always know like to just pause. Because
Mm.
I'm kind of like up here sometimes. I'm like, okay, what's coming? Especially if you have a longer format. But I've noticed the moments where I can pause and just be more, embodied and more
Mhm.
attuned. That pause is like shifts everything into a different
Yep,
space. So I
exactly.
love that.
Totally.
Awesome.
So maybe we close out by doing one more exercise together.
Ooh, yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
And
Sounds so good.
I'll share the link for this and for the Vicarious Resilience Tracker with everyone too. But this is the soft transitions exercise. And it's a free resource that I have on my website. And so this is something that can be really, really helpful when you're first working to be intentional about vicarious resilience, as a way to really install it, to make it real, to make it known to your brain and body that it happened. It also is a great way to transition, whether it is between clients, between roles. You and I, before we hopped on the live, were joking about how we were both in mom mode right before coming on, right?
Big time.
And I primarily work from home, and so I don't have a commute anymore. And so I really need to have intentional ways to transition from my office out here in the backyard before I go into the house over there. And
Mhm.
so the soft transitions exercise is a great way to do that. It should not take more than like 3, maybe 5 minutes if you want to really dig in. We'll probably do it even shorter here. And it pushes back against that expectation that we're supposed to just leave work at work, because that is a completely unrealistic expectation, because we dare I say love our clients. We care about them, and we do think about them when we're loading the dishwasher or driving down the road, and that's not a bad thing. But we can easily shame ourselves because, again, just like we're taught to avoid vicarious trauma, we're taught that the best way to avoid burnout is to leave work at work. But
Mhm.
when we inevitably think about our clients, it can be easy to shame ourselves.
Yeah.
And so this is a different way to transition between different roles or whatever's going on. And so it's just 3 steps. And when you grab it from the link, you'll get the PDF, and then also I have a little AI chatbot to help kind of coach people through it. But the first thing is just think about maybe 1 or 2 experiences of vicarious resilience that you've gotten to experience lately. So see what comes up. Okay.
Yeah.
And for folks who have the PDF, some people like to write it down, some people like to put it in a journal. It can be really nice to document these things, especially in those moments when we need to go back and look at stuff, right?
Yes.
So you've noted those in your brain and body.
Mhm.
Now, so we start by going deep into vicarious resilience, and then we kind of come up to get a little air, and we get a little cognitive. So think about 2, maybe 3 things you have to finish today.
Well, those came quick.
I know, right?
Okay.
Okay, now drop back into the relationship through gratitude. Okay.
Ooh, yeah.
And think about 1 or 2 people that you want to thank. You want
Hmm.
to say thank you to them for something. And bonus points if later you want to shoot that person a text or write them a little thank you note.
I love that.
And then just notice how you're feeling right now.
Oh, I love that. It was like the empathy sandwich, you know, when you have
Mm.
to like give hard news and you're like empathy, whatever, empathy. It's like I
Right?
activated a calm thing and then the reality thing and then the calm thing again. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that's really powerful to notice how quickly it can shift.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yep.
wasn't hard.
And it didn't take very long either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so, yeah, it is totally a sandwich because it's relational, because you're thinking about vicarious resilience, which happens in
yeah.
relationship. Then you get to come up for air and get a little cognitive. And then the gratitude, by thinking about someone you want to say thank you to, is a very different way to think about gratitude. And it brings you back into contact. So it helps to push back against isolation.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you. How cool. Amazing. Jenny, this is so fun. Honestly, I'm like, I could listen to you talk forever. I just, if you're watching, feel free to like give Jenny a shout out or if anything came up for you, questions, whatever, if you're watching the replay. But I just appreciate this is such a gift.
Hmm.
You know, just to be able to experience those exercises with you. And I know there's even so much more that you do. So can I just, if there's, folks who are like, that was really powerful. How can I get connected with you? What else do you offer? Like, where can they find you?
Yeah, totally. So I'll share the links to those free resources here. And I also, like I shared at the beginning, I run the Brave Trauma Therapist Collective, and Stephanie is a member actually. And in Brave, it's $12 a month to come and hang out with us. I want it to be super accessible. And it is a private online community. It's on a different app than any social media app. And there we are able to have asynchronous support 24/7. We also have lots of different calls. So we have on average like three different consultation calls a month. We have co-working, we have guest expert trainings, and I actually just created and I'm launching a directory.
Ooh.
And so you can come and hang out with us. It's literally like the cost of a coffee if you get a fancy coffee at Starbucks per
Yeah.
month. I also have a free tier in there. I was telling you I closed my Facebook group like this last year because it was just too many. I was in too many places. And so
Sure.
I added a free tier in Brave so that people can just come and be in the community and they can come to one call a month. So it's my content call where I do teaching just like this on different topics. And
Yeah.
so that can be a great way to kind of dip your toe in. I know that it can feel scary to be in spaces with other therapists because not all therapist spaces always feel all that great. Your group is an example of the opposite of that because people are able to be seen and be human and get support. So
Yeah.
I just name that because I know it can feel hard to jump into a space like that. So come dip
Yeah.
your toe in or come join us for $12 a month. Um, I'm gonna have Stephanie share her affiliate link here
Yeah.
below at some point. And yeah, come hang out with us.
Oh, that's so good. I love that so much. And especially, summer, a lot of feelings can be happening, a lot of
Mhm.
memories that we haven't thought about for a while can be happening. So, it's just like a very, very timely message.
Yep,
So, thank you
for sure.
so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's
Big
such an
hugs.
honor.
Yay!
Yay.
Amazing. All right, well, that pretty much wraps us up. And I just wish you and everybody like a really restful,
Mhm.
nourishing, resilient weekend.
Yes, me too. Thank
Amazing.
you.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.